The frame does not lie, and as of this morning, April 20th, 2026, the Hollywood dream for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex has officially transitioned into a public relations autopsy. While the world watches Harry and Meghan land in Melbourne for their high-stakes Australian tour, we have obtained the definitive evidence of what really happened behind the gates of Ted Sarandos' Montecito estate just 10 days ago. This is a breaking investigation into the 44 frames that Hollywood tried to spin as a victory, but instead revealed a devastating level of isolation. On the evening of April 10th, 2026, Netflix Chief Executive Officer Ted Sarandos hosted an elite garden party to celebrate the second season of the hit show Beef. The guest list was a billionaire's row of talent: Michael Keaton, Oscar Isaac, Orlando Bloom, and the night's guest of honor, Carey Mulligan. But as the official Getty Images drop hit the servers, a jarring pattern emerged. Out of 44 professional photographs filed by Stephanie Keenan, one of the most experienced entertainment photographers in Los Angeles, Meghan Markle appears in individual pairings with exactly two people: the host, Ted Sarandos, and his wife, Nicole Avant. Think about the statistical impossibility of that in a room full of A-listers. In Hollywood, the official photo record is the social currency of the morning after. It is the metric by which relevance is measured. If you are standing next to Batman himself, Michael Keaton, the photographer presses the shutter because that image has market value. If you are sharing a laugh with Oscar Isaac, it ends up on the server because the world wants to see that intersection of power. Yet, the record shows that not a single A-list star at that party stood next to the Duchess of Sussex long enough to create a marketable image. This isn't just about a missed photo opportunity, it is about a social quarantine. Industry insiders refer to this as the radioactive protocol. When a brand becomes as volatile as the Sussexes, the elite talent in the room makes a silent, collective decision to stay out of the frame. They know that appearing in a photograph with Meghan in 2026 is no longer a sign of status, it is a PR liability. To understand how far the mighty have fallen, we only need to look back at the Vanity Fair after-party in 2024, where the couple was still being courted by the heavyweights of the industry. 2 years later, they are being cropped out of the narrative in real time. The 44 frames filed by Keenan are a brutal testament to this new reality. In 42 of those images, the life of the party is vibrant. You see genuine warmth between the cast of Beef. You see the hierarchy of Netflix mingling with the creative elite of Hollywood. But in the 2 frames featuring Meghan, the energy shifts. These are not photos of a peer among peers. These are photos of a guest clinging to the hosts for legitimacy. To the casual observer, the exaggerated hug with Nicole Avant looked like a display of sisterhood. But to industry experts, it looked like an audition for a job she has already lost. This event did not happen in a vacuum. It occurred exactly 24 days after a major trade publication published a devastating report citing 6 high-level sources inside the Netflix organization. One insider was quoted as saying, quite simply, "We are done." Another source claimed that the mood in the building was one of exhaustion, with the executive team tired of the constant negativity and lack of creative output. Meghan wasn't at that garden party to celebrate television. She was there to prove she wasn't invisible. The strategy was clear: obtain a money shot with the Netflix hierarchy to silence the rumors of their impending contract termination. However, one witness in the garden reportedly described the scene by saying that Meghan seemed manic, leaning into Nicole Avant with an intensity that made the hosts look visibly uncomfortable. Body language analysts have since scrutinized these specific frames, describing them as exaggerated attachment rituals. In the high-stakes world of elite PR, when you have to squeeze someone that hard to prove you are friends, the friendship is already over. But the silence from the rest of the room was even louder than the forced smiles in those 2 photos. Where was the interaction with the creative engines of Hollywood? Where was the Duchess, who was supposed to be the bridge between royalty and the red carpet? The Getty record proves that while she may have been physically present in the garden, she was socially excluded from the room. The stars have moved on, the studio has moved on, and the industry has closed its ranks. As the couple lands in Australia today, the question isn't whether they can win back the hearts of the public. The question is how long they can pretend that the 44 frames of isolation didn't happen. The Hollywood Bible has spoken, and the Duchess is no longer a leading lady. She is a photobomber in a high-end garden, clinging to a partnership that has already been erased from the ledger. But why did she choose that specific evening to wear a color that many are calling a declaration of war? And what did Harry say to a group of attendees that left them stunned and reportedly embarrassed for him? As we peel back the layers of this Montecito disaster, The details of the chartreuse sabotage reveal a much darker motive behind her fashion choices. Stay with us, because the investigation into what happened at 10 p.m. that night is about to change everything you think you know about the Sussex exit. We are just getting started, and the receipts we are about to show you regarding the secret Netflix memo will leave Hollywood in shock. The visual record of that Montecito garden party on April 10th, 2026, reveals something far more aggressive than a mere fashion choice. In the high-stakes theater of Hollywood, there is an unwritten code of conduct, a set of invisible rules that every A-list star understands instinctively. You never, under any circumstances, attempt to outshine the guest of honor. Yet, as the sun began to set over Ted Sarandos' estate, Meghan Markle arrived in a vibrant, impossible-to-ignore shade of chartreuse, the exact same, highly specific color family worn by the evening's actual star, Carey Mulligan. This was not a coincidence. It was a calculated attempt at aesthetic sabotage. To understand the sheer audacity of this move, we have to look at the timeline of the preceding 14 days. Carey Mulligan, a 3-time Oscar nominee and the celebrated lead of the new season of Beef, had just walked into Windsor Castle exactly 2 weeks prior to receive her CBE from King Charles III. She was being honored by the very institution that Meghan Markle had spent the last several years publicly critiquing. By showing up in Carey's signature color for the night, Meghan wasn't just trying to look good, she was attempting to reclaim a narrative. It was a desperate signal to the room that she still belongs in the same orbit as a woman who is currently the toast of both London and Los Angeles. However, the strategy backfired in the most public and humiliating way possible. While Carey Mulligan was photographed at the epicenter of the event, surrounded by the show's creator, Lee Sung-jin, and peers like Oscar Isaac and Michael Keaton, Meghan found herself pushed to the literal margins of the garden. The official photo record doesn't show a duchess being embraced by her new Hollywood family. Instead, it shows a woman fighting for a spot in the frame, her chartreuse dress acting as a neon sign of her own exclusion. One witness at the party, a high-level producer who spoke on the condition of anonymity, remarked that the tension was palpable the moment the Sussexes arrived. The observer noted that Carey Mulligan did not even arrive at the main terrace until Meghan had been steered toward the exit. It appeared as though the actual talent of the night refused to share the spotlight with a woman who seemed more interested in her own reflection than the project being celebrated. This is where the expertise of body language analyst Judy James becomes devastating. Analyzing the 44 frames filed from the event, James officially described Meghan's behavior as exaggerated attachment rituals. She wasn't just attending a party, she was performing a role for which she was no longer cast. James pointed out that while the hosts, Ted Sarandos and Nicole Avant, maintained a professional and relaxed couple's pose, Meghan appeared to be photobombing her own hosts. Her leaning posture and the desperate, white-knuckled clutching of Nicole's hand suggested a woman who knew her invitation was on thin ice. James concluded that the Duchess of Sussex title has depreciated so significantly in the eyes of the industry that Hollywood's elite now view her presence as a liability to their own brand purity. The most telling detail, however, is the complete absence of any individual photos with the other stars in attendance. In Hollywood, the Getty Images server is the ultimate scoreboard. If a major star like Michael Keaton or Orlando Bloom wants to be associated with you, they stand next to you for the professional photographer. They offer a smile, a handshake, a marketable moment. But on the night of April 10th, Keaton, Bloom, and Don Johnson were nowhere to be seen in any pairing with the Duchess. They stayed in their own tightly knit circles, leaving Meghan to orbit the hosts like a fan who had won a charity auction. The chartreuse dress, intended to be a weapon of attention, ended up highlighting her absolute isolation. She stood there in the same color as the woman of the hour, but the room had already made its choice. Carey Mulligan was the star. Meghan was the distraction. But the social friction didn't stop at the wardrobe. As the evening progressed toward the main event, a moderated conversation with the cast, the situation took a turn that left several guests stunned. Reports from 3 separate sources claim that Harry and Meghan were politely asked to leave before the cast took their seats on stage. One source told reporters that Prince Harry appeared deeply embarrassed, allegedly whispering apologies to a group of attendees for what he described as his wife's lack of sensitivity regarding the evening's protocol. He was seen standing in the background, described by one witness as looking like a royal ghost, while Meghan continued to orbit the CEO's wife, desperate for just one more frame, one more receipt of her relevance. What was Harry so afraid of, and why did he feel the need to apologize to the very people who were ignoring his wife? The answer lies in a conversation overheard near the bar, where a guest was heard whispering, Is she actually trying to upstage the lead actress at her own celebration? The breach of etiquette was so profound that it became the primary topic of conversation once the Sussexes were escorted out. This wasn't just a party that went wrong, it was the moment the mask slipped. The industry saw the A-list Duchess not as a peer, but as a photobomber in a chartreuse dress, clinging to a partnership that had already been erased from the corporate ledger. But as they land in Melbourne, the drama of the garden party is being overshadowed by something much more dangerous. While Meghan was focused on her dress, the financial foundations of their empire were quietly being dismantled. In our next section, we are going to dive into the authority staircase and the leaked Netflix documents that prove the money has officially run out. If you thought the social snub was bad, wait until you see what happened to the $10 million of unsold inventory from Meghan's lifestyle brand. The numbers are coming in, and they are written in deep, irreversible red. Stay with us, because the truth about the as-ever collapse is even more shocking than the chartreuse sabotage. Beyond the chartreuse dresses and the forced smiles at garden parties lies a staircase of authority that leads to a single, devastating conclusion. The financial heart of the Sussex Empire has stopped beating. While the couple attempts to project an image of global influence and royal prestige, the hard data sitting on the desks of Hollywood executives tells a story of a collapse so absolute it has left the industry in shock. As of this morning, April 20th, 2026, we are no longer looking at a temporary slump. We are witnessing a total capital extinction. The first tier of this authority staircase is found in the brutal, unforgiving reality of the Netflix algorithm. By mid-April 2026, the internal viewership data for the second season of With Love, Meghan has been leaked to key industry analysts. To understand the scale of this disaster, you have to look at the trajectory. In the first half of 2025, the debut season of her lifestyle series premiered at a respectable, though not spectacular, 383rd on the platform's global rankings. However, the second season has recorded a catastrophic decline, currently sitting at 1,217th. In the world of high-stakes streaming, this isn't just a low ranking, it is total invisibility. When a brand that was marketed as the crown jewel of a multi-million-dollar content strategy is being outperformed by obscure, decade-old licensed content, the partnership is effectively over. But the staircase goes much deeper than mere viewership numbers. On March 6th, 2026, a document was filed in the state of California that signaled the official end of the corporate marriage between the Duchess and her primary backer. Netflix formally exited its equity stake in Meghan's lifestyle brand as ever. This was not a standard contract expiration or a scheduled transition. It was a capital withdrawal. When a multi-billion-dollar entity like Netflix decides to walk away from an equity position, they are doing more than just ending a project. They are declaring the brand itself a liability. Industry insiders report that Ted Sarandos reached a breaking point where the negative noise and the constant PR friction generated by the couple began to significantly outweigh any potential subscription growth. The financial umbilical cord has been severed, leaving the House of Sussex to fund their own lifestyle for the first time in years. Perhaps the most humiliating tier of this authority staircase is the physical evidence of this commercial failure. While Meghan was reportedly attempting to act the part of a billionaire chief executive officer in Montecito 10 days ago, a major trade publication broke a story that sent shockwaves through the California business community. The report revealed that the As Ever brand was sitting on more than $10 million of unsold inventory. We are talking about warehouses packed with luxury lifestyle products, the organic jams, the high thread count linens, the handcrafted home goods that simply failed to move at the retail level. The market had spoken, and the answer was a resounding no. The visual that has haunted the Sussex camp since mid-March is the report that these high-end products were eventually moved to card tables in the Netflix office lobby in Los Angeles. Sources within the building confirmed that the luxury jams and linens were being given away for free to employees, like unwanted promotional swag from a canceled convention. Think about the gravity of that detail. A brand that was supposed to rival the likes of Martha Stewart or Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop ended up as office clutter, handed out at the reception desk to avoid a total tax write-off. This is the ultimate devaluation of a royal title. When your luxury goods are being treated as free samples for junior staff, the dream of a retail empire is officially dead. This leads us to what we call the collapse mechanism. The sequence is predictable, but devastating for anyone caught in its gears. First comes the financial failure, characterized by the withdrawal of major backers and the accumulation of unsold inventory. This is followed immediately by the loss of creative control. Once the money stops flowing and the equity partners pull out, the only tool left in the box is the immediate and desperate PR whitewash. This is precisely why the timing of the Australian tour is so critical. Harry and Meghan are not in Melbourne today because they chose to be. They are in Melbourne because they have to be. The Hollywood gates have been locked from the inside, and the only place left to perform the royal role for a paying audience is in the far reaches of the Commonwealth. But as they land in Australia, they are carrying the weight of a 19-day mission that must succeed at all costs. The As Ever brand is currently a ghost, and the Netflix deal is a hollow shell. They are operating as financial refugees, attempting to use the beauty of the Australian landscape to drown out the noise of the $10 million inventory disaster. But the numbers do not lie, and the ledger for the House of Sussex is currently written in deep, irreversible red. The question that every executive in Hollywood is asking this morning is simple. If the data says you are invisible in Los Angeles, how much longer can you remain relevant in the rest of the world? The whitewash tour in Melbourne is a gamble of unprecedented proportions. But even as they prepare for their first public appearance, a new controversy is brewing regarding the funding of their security. If they can't afford their own inventory, who is paying for the private jets and the elite protection? In the next section, we will reveal the PR laundry cycle and the shocking truth about the $3,000 ticket prices that are currently fueling the Melbourne gambit. Stay with us, because the money trail is about to lead somewhere no one expected. To understand why Harry and Meghan have suddenly landed in Melbourne, Australia, on this day, April 20th, 2026, you have to understand the mechanics of what industry insiders call the PR laundry cycle. This isn't a diplomatic mission, and it certainly isn't a casual visit to the Commonwealth. It is a four-step strategic maneuver designed to scrub the radioactive label off their brand after the catastrophic failures we witnessed in Montecito and the collapse of their Netflix equity. When the gates of Hollywood stop opening, the only move left is to retreat to a place where the royal title still carries the weight of history, even if that history is being used to sell a commercial product. The cycle begins with step 1, the Hollywood snub. As we analyzed with the 44 frames from the Sarandos garden party, the A-list has effectively quarantined the Sussexes. When legends like Michael Keaton and Oscar Isaac refuse to be captured in a single professional image with you, it sends a clear signal to the global industry. You are no longer an asset, you are a liability. This radioactive status is the immediate trigger for step 2, the royal pivot. By crossing the ocean to Australia, they are attempting to reset the clock to 2018, the year of their first successful tour. They are leaning heavily into their titles, using the Commonwealth stage to regain a sense of prestige that has completely evaporated in California. However, this prestige is no longer organic. It is carefully manufactured, leading us to step 3, the pay-to-play illusion. This is where the business model gets truly desperate. For their appearances in Melbourne over the next 19 days, tickets to see the Duchess speak are being sold for as much as 3,199 Australian dollars. Think about that number for a moment. That is not the price of a charity gala. That is the price of an elite, curated audience. By setting the barrier to entry so high, the Sussex team ensures that only the most dedicated or the most affluent supporters are in the room. This creates a controlled environment that looks like a triumph on camera. When the footage hits the evening news, you see a cheering crowd, but you don't see the thousands of empty seats that would have existed if the tickets were priced for the general public. It is a hollow spectacle designed to convince the next potential investor that the Sussex magic is still alive. But the most cynical part of this laundry cycle is step 4, the security gambit. This is the ultimate tool for staying in the headlines when the work itself fails to generate interest. By demanding taxpayer-funded police security for what is essentially a non-official commercial tour, they intentionally trigger a diplomatic row. This controversy is not a mistake, it is a feature of their strategy. When the Australian government or the local Victoria Police say no to funding their private security detail, it allows the Sussex camp to reactivate the victim narrative. It allows them to claim they are unsafe and unsupported by the very institution they represent, turning a simple logistical and financial refusal into a global headline about their supposed martyrdom. The reality on the ground in Melbourne, however, is shifting rapidly. The Australian public is no longer the same audience that greeted them with open arms years ago. As of this morning, a petition on change.org has exploded, surpassing 43,000 signatures in less than 72 hours. These are ordinary citizens officially protesting the use of any public funds to protect a private, commercial venture. The petition explicitly states that the Australian taxpayer should not be the financial safety net for a couple that has walked away from their duties, but continues to use the trappings of royalty for profit. This is the whitewash mechanism in real time. They are trying to use the beauty of the Melbourne skyline and the high ticket prices of elite venues to hide the fact that their primary financial backers in Hollywood have pulled out. But as the petition grows and the diplomatic friction increases, the question is whether this laundry cycle will actually clean the brand or simply expose the stains even further. One specific document has just been leaked from the Australian Federal Police regarding a private security firm hired for the Melbourne leg of the trip, and the details of who is actually signing the checks might just be the one thing this PR machine can't spin. We have to ask, if they are sitting on $10 million of unsold inventory from As Ever, how are they affording the $25,000 a night penthouse at one of Melbourne's most exclusive hotels? How are they paying for a security detail that costs more than some small-town police budgets? This is the pay-to-play illusion reaching its breaking point. They are performing for their lives, trying to prove to the world that they are still A-list, while the data from Los Angeles says they are social refugees. The move to Australia was supposed to be a rebirth, a triumphant return to the global stage. But as the four-step cycle plays out, it's looking more like a final stand. The royal pivot is failing to mask the Hollywood snub, and the Australian public is refusing to play the role of the silent audience. But the most devastating revelation is still to come. While they are busy managing the crowds in Melbourne, a timeline of their collapse over the last 44 days has been compiled, showing a domino effect that even the most expensive PR team cannot stop. In the next section, we are going to break down that domino timeline and show you exactly when the kill switch was flipped on their Hollywood career. Stay with us, because the truth about what happened at 10 p.m. on the night of the Sarandos party is the key to everything that is happening in Australia right now. To understand the sheer desperation of the current Australian tour, one must look at the precision-timed collapse that has unfolded over the last 44 days. This is not a series of random misfortunes. It is a domino effect of professional and social rejection that has left the Sussex brand in a state of freefall. The timeline of this collapse provides the roadmap to exactly why Harry and Meghan had no choice but to board that flight to Melbourne. They didn't arrive as global icons. They arrived as people running out of places to hide from their own data. The financial umbilical cord was officially severed on March 6, 2026. In a move that sent shockwaves through the California business sector, Netflix filed formal documents confirming it had exited its equity stake in Meghan's lifestyle brand As Ever. This was the kill switch. When a backer of that magnitude pulls their capital, they aren't just ending a partnership, they are signaling to every other potential investor that the brand is toxic. The financial safety net was gone, and the clock began ticking on their remaining liquid assets. Exactly 11 days later, on March 17, 2026, the industry's most respected journal, Variety, published what is now known as the Six Sources Report. This wasn't a gossip column, it was a professional execution. 6 high-level insiders within the Netflix organization went on the record to state that the mood in the building was, and I quote, "We're done." The report detailed a fundamental breakdown in creative trust and a total lack of confidence in the Sussexes' ability to deliver marketable content. The Hollywood Bible had spoken, and the verdict was a professional death sentence. For 10 days, the couple remained silent, retreating behind the gates of Montecito as the industry began to scrub their names from future project lists. This leads us to the evening of April 10th, 2026, the night of the Sarandos garden party. At 7 p.m., Meghan was photographed in that now infamous chartreuse dress, engaging in what observers described as a manic hug with the chief executive officer's wife, Nicole Avant. It was a desperate audition to save her remaining ties, a physical attempt to hold on to the last power players in her orbit. But the most devastating detail emerged just 3 hours later. By 10 p.m. that same evening, as the moderated conversation with the cast of Beef was about to begin, reports surfaced that Harry and Meghan had been politely asked to leave the premises. They were allegedly escorted out before the night's guest of honor, Carey Mulligan, even took her seat for the main celebration. The attempt to hug her way back into favor had failed before the sun had even fully set on the West Coast. Just 5 days ago, on April 15th, 2026, the United Kingdom High Court made public the latest defamation lawsuit filed by Prince Harry. In the world of elite crisis management, this is known as a diversionary fire. Whenever the Hollywood news turns radioactive, a new legal battle is launched in London to shift the headlines back to the victim narrative. It is a classic move from their established playbook. When you are losing the business war, start a legal one. But this time, the distraction didn't hold. The global media remained focused on the empty seats at the Montecito table and the $10 million of unsold as-ever inventory sitting in cold storage. Finally, at 8 a.m. Melbourne time on April 18, 2026, the Sussexes landed in Australia. They arrived not as triumphant global leaders, but as professional refugees. The whitewash tour had officially begun. They are currently attempting to use the beauty of the Australian landscape and the hospitality of the Commonwealth to drown out the noise of the Netflix equity exit and the Variety report. They are banking on the idea that the world will see the cheering crowds and forget the "we're done" quote from the most powerful executives in Los Angeles. But as the clock ticks on this 19-day mission, the shadow of that chartreuse dress and the 10 p.m. dismissal follows them across the Pacific. They are running out of time, running out of backers, and running out of countries that haven't seen the internal viewership data. The landing in Melbourne wasn't a beginning. It was an escape from a reality they can no longer control. The question that is currently haunting the Australian Federal Police is one that the Sussex camp has tried to suppress. Who is actually funding this escape? If the equity deal is dead and the inventory is being given away for free, where did the millions of dollars for this private, high-security tour come from? The trail of the money is the only thing left to uncover, and as we move into our final section, we have the leaked documents that reveal a secret funding source that will ignite a political firestorm in both Canberra and London. Stay with us, because what we found in the Australian Federal Police dossier regarding the security invoice changes everything. If you want the truth about who is really signing the checks for the Melbourne Gambit, you need to hear this next part. We are about to reveal the final discard kitsch ban, the moment when the partnership itself becomes the last thing left to sell. The receipts are here, and the data is irreversible. Stay tuned. The Melbourne Gambit has officially begun, and the stakes for the House of Sussex have never been higher. As of this morning, the 20th of April, 2026, the global audience is watching a high-speed collision between Hollywood reality and Commonwealth optics. Based on the data we have gathered from Montecito to Melbourne, there are 3 distinct paths this story could take over the next 72 hours, and none of them lead back to the golden gates of A-list acceptance. The first scenario, though increasingly likely given the current climate, is the total collapse. In this version of reality, the Australian tour is met with a wall of public indifference that no amount of PR spin can hide. We are already seeing the warning signs. The high ticket prices, upwards of $3,199, have led to reports of half-empty ballrooms and heavily papered audiences. Meanwhile, the Change.org petition, which has now surged past 43,000 signatures, is fueling active protests outside their hotels. This level of failure would be impossible to whitewash. It would force a humiliating early retreat back to California and provide Netflix with the final legal justification to terminate every remaining clause in their contracts for good. If Australia says no, there is truly nowhere left for the royal brand to go. The second, more explosive scenario is what insiders call the manufactured crisis. History has shown that whenever the Sussexes find themselves on the back foot, a security emergency or a dramatic near-miss incident follows. We could see a staged threat or a perceived security breach in the heart of Melbourne, designed specifically to drown out the reports of their Hollywood isolation and the as-ever financial disaster. This would allow them to pivot back to their favorite narrative, that they are the most hunted and unprotected people on Earth. It is a strategic distraction, intended to trigger a massive legal battle against the Australian government and generate headlines that replace the stories about their missing work opportunities in Los Angeles. However, the third and most realistic scenario is what experts are calling the independence test. Throughout the first 48 hours of this trip, sharp-eyed observers have noted that Meghan is increasingly operating as a solo entity. She is the one holding the microphone. She is the one leading the moderated conversations. She is the one center stage, while Harry remains relegated to the background like a royal relic. If the Australian public accepts Meghan as a powerful, independent figure, even if they reject the couple as a unit, the final discard protocol will be activated. Meghan is using this 19-day tour to prove to potential billionaire backers and venture capitalists that she doesn't need the prince to command a room. If this test succeeds, the divorce filings could be drafted before their private jet even clears Australian airspace. This brings us back to the most chilling question of all, the one that started this entire investigation. Why did the Getty photographer file 44 professional photos from the Sarandos party, but only 2 pairings featuring Meghan Markle? It is because in the elite gardens of Montecito, the A-list didn't just ignore her, they erased her. They made a collective, unspoken decision that being seen with the Duchess was toxic for their own brand purity. They saw the 6 sources report in Variety, they saw the $10 million of unsold inventory, and they chose to protect their own interests. Australia is not a vacation or a diplomatic visit. It is a desperate attempt to rewrite a script that has already been rejected by the people who control the green lights in Hollywood. But here is the detail that will change the entire trajectory of this tour. As the couple landed in Melbourne at 8 a.m., a new document surfaced from within the Australian Federal Police. This leaked internal memo concerns the specific funding of their elite, multi-million-dollar security detail. It raises a question that no chartreuse dress, no tender heart speech, and no amount of staged hugs can hide. Who is actually signing the checks for this 19-day mission? If the Netflix equity is gone and the lifestyle brand is a ghost, the money has to be coming from somewhere. The leaked AFP dossier points to a private offshore entity that has ties to a controversial billionaire who has his own agenda for the Commonwealth. If this is true, it means Harry and Meghan are no longer just failed content creators. They are being used as pawns in a much larger geopolitical game. The revelation regarding that funding and the true cost of the Melbourne Gambit is a firestorm that is about to break. The frame does not lie, and as we have seen from the 44 frames of isolation in Montecito to the growing protests in Melbourne, the clock is ticking on the final act of the Sussex era. They are running out of runway, running out of friends, and most importantly, running out of ways to hide the truth from the public. The Hollywood Bible has closed its pages on them, and now the Australian people are holding the pen. If you want to see the actual receipts, the leaked AFP documents, and the internal Netflix memos that Hollywood tried to bury, you must stay tuned for our next update. We are the only ones tracking the money trail, from the as-ever warehouses to the streets of Melbourne. Hit the like button right now to support this independent investigation. Subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications, because this story is moving faster than the PR teams can keep up with. Drop a comment below with the word truth if you are ready for the full AFP dossier and the secret behind the Melbourne funding. The mask has slipped, the data is out, and the A-list Duchess is facing a reality that no filter can fix. Stay with us. We are just getting to the part they never wanted you to see.